Hi, English learners. Have you seen The Odyssey yet?
I have, and I needed a few minutes before I could even explain how I felt.
Same. I walked out of the cinema feeling as if I had been somewhere very far away.
Somewhere far away, very loud, and occasionally covered in seawater.
That is a surprisingly accurate review.
Thank you. I worked on it all night.
I am Mia, and today I really want to talk about this film.
And I am Leo. I liked it, but I also have a few reservations, so this will not be 30 minutes of us saying, it was amazing.
Good, because that is exactly our topic today. How to give a complete movie review in English.
We will use The Odyssey as our main example, but the structure will work for almost any film.
Let me ask you the question people always ask first. Did you like it?
Overall, yes. I admired it more than I loved every part of it.
That is already more interesting than saying, yes, it was good.
Exactly. I admired it more than I loved it tells you that I respected the craft, even when I did not connect emotionally with every choice.
My first reaction was more emotional. I found it overwhelming, but in a good way.
And overwhelming can be positive or negative, depending on the explanation that follows.
Right. For me, the scale, the sound, and the feeling of distance made the story feel enormous.
My first reaction was visually extraordinary, emotionally powerful in places, but not always evenly paced.
So before we give a score, we already have three useful areas: visuals, emotional effect, and pacing.
Which is why a good movie review is not simply good or bad. It explains what worked, what did not, and why.
Before we review it, let us give listeners a little background.
The Odyssey was written and directed by Christopher Nolan and released by Universal Pictures in July 2026.
It is based on Homer's ancient Greek epic poem, one of the most influential journey stories in Western literature.
Matt Damon plays Odysseus, the central figure trying to return home after the Trojan War.
The cast also includes Tom Holland, Anne Hathaway, Robert Pattinson, Lupita Nyong'o, Zendaya, and Charlize Theron.
In other words, it is the kind of cast that makes you look at the poster and say, wait, they are in it too?
The film runs for about 2 hours and 52 minutes, so it asks for real attention.
And it was the first full-length theatrical film shot entirely with IMAX film cameras.
That matters because the format is not just a marketing label here. The physical scale of the image is part of the experience.
It also gives us a perfect reason to discuss how technology affects the way we evaluate a film.
Suppose someone has never read Homer and has not watched the film. How would you introduce it without spoilers?
I would say the Odyssey follows Odysseus, a warrior and king, as he tries to return to his home in Ithaca after the Trojan War.
His journey becomes much longer and more dangerous than expected.
He faces the sea, strange lands, powerful forces, temptation, loss, and the consequences of his own decisions.
Meanwhile, home is not frozen in time. The people waiting for him are also changing and making difficult choices.
That last point is important. It is not simply a travel story with monsters. It is also a story about what happens to a person during a long absence.
And whether returning to a place means you can return to the person you used to be.
Notice that we have described the premise and the central questions without revealing specific turns in the film.
A useful opening is, without giving too much away, the film follows.
Then give the central situation, not a list of events.
Now let us give everyone the big picture before we go into detail.
To review a film clearly, you can use 7 lenses.
First, image and cinematography. What the film looks like and how the camera presents its world.
Second, sound and music. The score, voices, silence, effects, and the physical experience of listening.
Third, acting and characters. Whether the performances feel convincing, layered, or emotionally believable.
Fourth, rhythm and pacing. How the story moves, where it slows down, and whether the changes in energy feel intentional.
Fifth, emotional effect. What the film makes you feel and what stays with you afterward.
Sixth, themes and meaning. The larger ideas under the plot.
And seventh, adaptation. How the movie reshapes its source material.
You do not have to discuss all 7 every time, but this framework stops your review from becoming a random list of adjectives.
Today we will use all 7, because the Odyssey gives us something interesting to say in every category. Let us begin with image and cinematography. My immediate word was huge.
Huge is honest, but we can make it more precise. The film uses sweeping landscapes and large format images to make the human figures look small against the natural world.
I noticed that too. The sea does not feel like a pretty background. It feels powerful and unpredictable.
That is a strong observation. You could say, the cinematography turns the landscape into an active force in the story.
I also like the contrast between wide images and more intimate close-ups.
Wide shots create scale. Close-ups bring us back to individual fear, exhaustion, or uncertainty.
So instead of only saying, the film is visually stunning, I could explain, the sweeping images make the journey feel enormous, while the close-ups keep the experience personal.
Perfect. The adjective gives your opinion. The second sentence gives evidence.
What about the word cinematic?
Useful, but vague on its own. If you say a film feels cinematic, explain whether you mean scale, composition, lighting, movement, or the way it uses the theater screen.
Then my fuller evaluation would be, the film is visually stunning, but its real strength is the way the images communicate distance, danger, and human vulnerability.
That sounds like a review, not an advertisement.
We have to talk about the sound. I could feel parts of this film in my chair.
Yes, the sound design is extremely physical. The sea, wind, movement, and moments of impact often feel larger than the screen.
At times I found it immersive. At other times, I found it almost too intense.
That is a useful distinction. Immersive means the sound pulls you into the world. Overpowering means it becomes so strong that it dominates your attention.
So 2 viewers can hear the same sound mix and respond differently.
Exactly. One might say, the powerful sound design makes the journey feel immediate. Another might say, the mix is impressive, although it occasionally overwhelms the dialogue.
I also liked the quieter moments because they gave the louder sequences more weight.
Silence is part of sound design. Contrast creates rhythm and expectation.
And Ludwig Göransson's score does not only tell us what to feel. Sometimes it creates pressure. Sometimes it leaves room for uncertainty.
A complete sound evaluation can mention the score, effects, dialogue clarity, silence, and how all of them affect the viewer.
Mine would be, the sound is immersive and often overwhelming, but the quieter passages prevent the film from becoming one continuous wall of noise.
Now acting. What did you think of Matt Damon as Odysseus?
I found his performance physically convincing. He carries exhaustion in the way he moves, not only in what he says.
Good. That is much more specific than his acting was great.
There is also a moral weight to the character. He is capable, but the film does not present him as a perfect hero.
I agree. Damon plays him as someone shaped by experience, pride, loss, and responsibility.
Anne Hathaway's performance feels more restrained.
Restrained is useful here. It means the actor does not show every emotion openly. The feeling is controlled, but still present.
Tom Holland brings a different energy, more youthful, more immediate.
And Robert Pattinson has a more unsettling presence. Even before a character explains everything, performance can tell us how safe or unsafe a situation feels.
So when we evaluate acting, we can discuss voice, movement, facial expression, chemistry, emotional range, and whether the character feels believable.
My summary would be, the performances are not all working at the same emotional temperature, but that contrast often suits characters who have lived very different versions of the same story.
I like that because it leaves room for complexity. This may be our first real disagreement. I liked the slow sections.
I liked some of them. Others felt longer than they needed to be.
Fair, but I would call the opening a slow burn rather than simply slow.
A slow burn develops gradually and builds meaning or tension over time. That phrase is positive or neutral.
It drags is more negative.
Right, if a section drags, you feel that the story has lost momentum without gaining enough atmosphere, character, or meaning.
I thought the film's rhythm reflected the journey. Long periods of waiting are interrupted by sudden danger.
That is a strong defense of the pacing. You are connecting form and meaning.
But you still found it uneven?
Slightly. Some transitions felt urgent and powerful. Others made me aware of the running time.
Then you could say, the deliberate pacing suits the idea of a long journey, although a few sections lose momentum.
Exactly. That sentence is balanced. It explains both the intention and my reaction.
The fifth lens is emotional effect. What stayed with you after the film?
Surprisingly, not the largest images. It was the feeling that returning home does not automatically repair what time has changed.
Same. The film is visually enormous, but its emotional question is intimate.
That contrast gives us a useful sentence. Beneath the spectacle, the film is a deeply personal story about distance and return.
I felt moved, unsettled, and sometimes exhausted.
Moved means emotionally affected, often with sympathy. Unsettled means something continues to disturb your certainty or comfort.
And exhausted is not necessarily criticism here. The journey is supposed to cost something.
True, although a viewer can still decide that the experience asks too much.
Emotional effect is personal, but a good review connects the feeling to a feature of the film.
For example, the repeated contrast between vast distance and intimate faces made the idea of home feel both comforting and painful.
That tells us what you felt and why.
Now we move from how the film is made to what it may be saying.
The most obvious theme is homecoming, but home is not treated as a simple reward.
The story asks whether home is a place, a relationship, a memory, or an identity.
It also explores loyalty, both the loyalty of the person who leaves and the people who remain.
Then there is temptation. Not every obstacle is something the hero can defeat with strength.
Some obstacles require self-control, patience, or the ability to remember what matters.
The film also invites discussion about war and its aftermath. A person can survive a war and still carry it home internally.
That makes the story feel modern, even though the source is ancient.
A useful theme sentence is, the film uses an epic journey to explore the quieter question of what violence does to a person's sense of self.
Another could be, at its core, the story is less about conquering the world than about becoming capable of returning home.
Theme is not the same as plot. Plot is what happens. Theme is the larger idea we understand through what happens.
Our seventh lens is adaptation. This is especially important because Homer's poem has existed for almost 3,000 years.
No film can include every episode, character, symbol, and contradiction from such a long and influential work.
So, is it faithful? Is not a simple yes or no question.
We can ask, is it faithful to the events, to the characters, to the tone, to the moral complexity, or to the spirit of the journey?
Nolan modernizes the language and emphasizes some themes more than others.
Some viewers will appreciate that accessibility. Others may feel that the ancient world becomes too familiar or too modern.
That gives us a balanced evaluation. The film changes and compresses parts of the source, but it preserves the scale, uncertainty, and moral complexity of the journey.
Or a more reserved view. The adaptation is visually powerful, although its modern tone sometimes reduces the strangeness of Homer's world.
Neither sentence simply says faithful or unfaithful. Both explain the standard being used. We now have 7 categories. Let us turn them into one coherent review.
Start with an overall impression. Then select the strongest evidence. Do not force every category into one paragraph.
I will try first. Overall, I found The Odyssey visually breathtaking and emotionally more intimate than I expected. The sweeping IMAX images make the journey feel enormous, while the close-ups keep the characters' fear and exhaustion personal. The sound design is immersive and sometimes almost overpowering, but quieter moments create necessary contrast. Matt Damon gives Odysseus a convincing physical and moral weight, and the supporting performances bring different kinds of tension to the story. The pacing is deliberate and occasionally uneven, yet that rhythm often reflects the long, uncertain nature of the journey. What stayed with me most was the film's exploration of home, identity, and the cost of survival. It may not preserve every part of Homer's poem, but it captures the spirit of an epic journey shaped by difficult choices.
That works because it moves from overall impression to craft, then from craft to meaning.
And I did not reveal an important plot turn.
My shorter version would be, I admired the film's technical ambition and the way it turns an ancient epic into a physical cinema experience. I was less convinced by some of the pacing, but the performances and themes gave the spectacle emotional weight. Overall, it is an ambitious adaptation that rewards discussion, even when not every choice works equally well.
Your review is more reserved, but it is still fair.
A good review does not need to be completely positive. It needs to be clear, specific, and supportive.
Now I want to go one level deeper. What does it actually mean to return home?
Physically, it means reaching a place. Philosophically, it can mean recovering a relationship, a role, or a version of yourself.
But after a long journey, that old version may no longer exist.
Exactly. The traveler changes, the people at home change, and the meaning of home changes.
So the destination cannot simply erase the journey.
That may be one reason the story has survived. Many people know the experience of wanting to return to something that time has already transformed.
A childhood home, a relationship, a country, even an earlier version of yourself.
The difficult question is not only, can I get back? It is, who will I be when I arrive?
The story also lives between fate and free will.
Yes, powerful forces shape the journey, but the character's decisions still have consequences.
That tension feels familiar. We do not control every event, but we are still responsible for how we respond.
And sometimes people use fate as an excuse. If everything is destined, responsibility becomes easy to avoid.
But the film keeps returning to choice, especially choices made under pressure.
Which raises a deeper question. Is character revealed by extraordinary events or created through them?
Maybe both. A crisis reveals habits that were already there, but it can also change what a person becomes.
That is why the hero is interesting as a flawed hero. Intelligence and courage do not remove pride, fear, or moral responsibility.
When people hear epic hero, they often imagine physical strength.
But Odysseus is also associated with intelligence, endurance, language, patience, and sometimes deception.
Survival requires different forms of strength.
Courage can mean acting. Endurance can mean continuing. Resilience means recovering and adapting after difficulty.
And self-control can be heroic too, although it looks less dramatic on a movie poster.
Very few posters say, this summer, a man waits patiently and makes a responsible decision.
I would watch that.
You might be the only person in the IMAX theater.
But seriously, the story suggests that reaching home requires more than defeating external enemies. It requires managing the self.
Which may be the hardest journey in the entire story.
Why do you think a story this old can still fill cinemas in 2026?
Because the details are mythic, but the emotional structure is familiar. Leaving, losing direction, facing temptation, carrying consequences, and wanting to return.
It is also flexible. Every generation can emphasize a different question.
One generation may focus on heroism, another may focus on war, trauma, loyalty, gender, identity, or the people who waited at home.
Adaptation keeps the story alive, but it also creates debate.
And debate is healthy. A film does not need to become the final version of a classic text.
It can be one interpretation that sends people back to the story with new questions.
That may be the best result, not agreement, but curiosity.
Let us leave listeners with a simple structure they can use after any film.
Begin with, overall, I found the film.
Then choose 2 or 3 craft areas. Visually, the sound design, the performances. In terms of pacing,
Explain the effect. This makes the world feel, or this gives the story.
add a balanced reservation if needed. Although, however, or I was less convinced by.
Move to meaning. At its core, the film explores.
And finish with an overall judgment. It is an ambitious adaptation that.
Adjective, evidence, effect, and judgment. That is a much stronger review than a list of vocabulary.
So, have you seen The Odyssey? And if you have, which part shaped your opinion most? The image, sound, acting, pacing, emotional effect, themes, or adaptation?
Try to answer in 2 or 3 English sentences using the framework from today.
If you have not watched it, choose another film and tell us what worked and why.
You can also tell us which movie or English topic you would like us to discuss next.
If this episode helped you express a more complete opinion, please like the video and subscribe to The Fluent Bite.
Small bites, big fluency.
Thanks for listening.
And we will see you in the next episode.